Hi all. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I will seem to have quite a full lobby, so I might get us kicked off now. It's really great to see so many schools taking time to join the session. Today is really about exploring what a connected SIS and LMS experience can look like in practice, and how Veracross and Schoolbox work together to support that across learning, operations, and the broader school community. We'll spend a bit of time looking at the strategic side of the partnership, hearing directly from a school already working with both platforms, and then we'll also walk through what the experience actually looks like day to day inside Schoolbox. A really important part of today is keeping the conversation practical and grounded in real school operations, because ultimately the integrations are only valuable if they improve the experiences for students, families, and staff. I'll quickly introduce everyone presenting today. Firstly, myself, Andrew Carlton, one of the product owners here at Schoolbox. A big part of my role is working closely with schools, our product teams, and partners like Veracross. Joining us from Veracross is Chris Lang, the Head of Sales APAC from Veracross. And we're also really fortunate to have both Jono Fox and David Tran joining us from Tyndale Christian School, who will share real-world insights around working with both platforms inside a school environment. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we jump in. The webinar is being recorded and will be shared afterwards. Please feel free to add questions into the Q&A function throughout the session, and we'll make sure we leave some time at the end for additional questions and discussions as well. We know we've got a lot of ICT leaders and technology teams joining us today, so we'll try and keep things practical, relevant, and focused on bigger picture, rather than getting too deep into the technical implementation details. For anyone newer to Schoolbox, Schoolbox is a platform designed specifically for kindergarten to 12 schools to support learning management, community experience, and day-to-day school operations. At our core, we see ourselves as trusted partners for schools, not just from a technological perspective, but in helping schools create a digital environment that genuinely supports staff, students, and families. Our aim in everything we build is shaped around how schools actually operate, because schools are incredibly unique environments. A big focus for us is helping schools create a more connected experience across learning, school operations, and a wider school community. When schools work with Schoolbox, they're not simply implementing another software platform. They're embedding learning delivery and community experience into the day-to-day operations of the school. Importantly, though, we strongly believe schools have the flexibility to build the ecosystem that works best for them. That's why partnerships like the one we have with Veracross are so important to us. Rather than trying to be everything for everyone, we focus on building strong integrations between platforms that schools already know and trust. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Chris to introduce Veracross to you all.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Andrew. And a huge thank you to Schoolbox for hosting us today at this webinar, and also to Jono and David from Tyndale for joining us. So who is Veracross? I wanted to start at a bit of a global level. Now, choosing a SIS is a 10 to 15 year decision, I think, and even more for many schools in APAC. And you want to partner with disability, depth, and community to really make that commitment with choice. And so while we are relatively new to the Australian market, being here for a few years now, we have been serving exclusively independent schools for 20 plus years. And I just wanted to hold on that. We focus solely on independent schools. We do not work with any state or government schools or any Catholic dioceses. What this allows us to do is focus on serving those independent schools with the functionality that they need. We have nearly 800 schools in across 40 different countries around the world. We have a 99% retention rate. And if you're across the Net Promoter Score, we have a Net Promoter Score of 50 plus, which is industry leading as well. If we just go next slide. Beautiful. So who are we locally? I think this is even a big one. So bringing the picture closer to home, Veracross in Australia and APAC. So we are well established locally. We post the acquisition of Digistorm in 2023. We had about 60 people joining our team locally, and that has grown to 90 and still growing now. We've got a number of open roles due to our investment in the Australian and New Zealand market. Okay, we have local support here in Australia and APAC time zones, and further to that, we also have follow the sun support as well. We have a very, very active local community with user groups, regional events, and a full customer success team as well. And something that I'm quite proud of is that you really get the depth of a global platform with a partner that actually turns up locally. So it gives you a bit more. Over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Chris. One of the things I think schools are increasingly looking for is not necessarily fewer systems, but better connected systems. Schools want the flexibility to choose platforms that are genuinely strong in their respective areas, while still delivering a seamless experience to end users. That's really where the relationship between Veracross and Schoolbox works well. Veracross plays a critical role as the operational foundation for schools, while Schoolbox focuses heavily on the learning, engagement, and community experience layers. Because of the strong integration between both platforms, schools are able to offer a more connected surface of information for students, families, and staff, without needing to compromise on capability or flexibility. And importantly, this isn't just a static integration. Both teams are working closely together, looking at where we can further improve workflows, visibility, and connected experiences for schools over time. With that, I'll hand back to Chris to take everyone through Veracross in a bit more detail.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. So look, just an overview today. Firstly, I'm going to be running you through Veracross 360. This is our integrated view of every person, every interaction, and every record across the school. Secondly, I'm going to touch on data privacy and security, how we protect school data by design and not as a bolt-on. And thirdly, our partner ecosystem. Andrew's touched on a few times here. We want to show you how schools extend Veracross with specialist tools such as Schoolbox and other ones that they already love. So, does any of this look familiar? We are in a very fortunate position here at Veracross that we get a lot of schools coming to us with RFPs, and often during those RFPs, we get systems maps that look pretty similar to this. Okay, admissions lives in one system, billings in another, academics might be over there, advancement might be somewhere else or non-existent altogether. What ends up happening is that the same student exists 3 or 4 times and with slightly different details in each system. We've spoken to many schools that staff spend hours rekeying data and reconciling reports that should already be in sync. And what happens when that occurs is that parents can get conflicting messages depending on what portal they log into. And that's especially not mentioning, parents that are also staff members. Now, leadership further make decisions based on data they truly do not trust, or they might know is old or not full and up to date as well. And this is the world that most schools are trying to escape, and the world really that Veracross was actually built to replace. So here is Veracross in one view. So one person, one record, but every department. So a student, a parent, a staff member, and an alum each exist once in the system. That single record carries everything from admissions history, academic record, billing, health, communications, giving information, all there. Every department then works off the same record in real time at the end, and so that there are no separate databases that need to be reconciled at the end of term. When the data is unified, the schools can actually act with confidence, and the experience for families and all stakeholders gets noticeably better. So let's just make that a bit more concrete. So I'm going to walk the life cycle quickly on a single record. So firstly, an inquiry comes in. It will come in through the integrated inquiry module, through forms on your website, and that will automatically create the admissions record. That same record comes through the application and the offer. They can automatically connect it to if they're an existing family, and the student enrolls, and academic, pastoral, health, and timetable data sits on that same record with no rekeying. Billing that can then happen against that record. They can pay for fees or set up payment plans, all linked to the family, all throughout the enrollment process as well if they want. And teachers then can see the student in context. They can see academic history, learning needs, and communications, all linked to their family. Advancement, if there is one, picks up their record at graduation. They automatically become an alum. Engagement and continued nurturing can continue without a break. And then that alum could even become a staff member or a member of the board and have access to the system all through that same record. So really, as you can see here, it is just one connected workflow. And that's what we feel integrated really looks like as well. Cool. I think this is obviously even more pertinent than ever and very topical. So I just want to talk about a non-negotiable, and that's data privacy and security. So I think we'd all here agree that schools hold some of the most sensitive data in any sector. There's children, families' health, financial information, and really the bar has to be enterprise grade and not just good enough for a school, properly enterprise grade. And one thing I will say is, across the world, we are seeing Australian schools being some of the most astute when it comes to data security and privacy in terms of the RFPs and information security requests that we get. So the bar does have to be enterprise grade though, and that's why we move to secure by design. So next slide. So as you can see, one thing I just want to call out is we've always been fully cloud hosted. We do not have any on-prem servers for the school to maintain. We are hosted in AWS in Australia, and we also have redundancy in Azure as well. Now, that's all well and good, but if the system goes down, then it serves no one. So we actually have a 99.9% uptime SLA. So we know schools depend on this every day, and we have to be there and we have to be able to perform. On the security side, obviously we have role-based access control. Staff can only see what they need to. Single sign-on MFA are included as standard, not as an upgrade. And we have a full audit log. So every change is tracked, every login is recording, nothing happens invisibly in your school. Further to that, ongoing penetration testing and external audits through InfoSec are carried out as well throughout the year. Now, this is the foundation that allows our schools to say yes with confidence when discussing InfoSec and if they're safe with Veracross. Okay, we'll go to the next one now, just onto the last one on partner ecosystem. So being a former vendor that integrated with Assist, I really like to think I understand how important an ecosystem is to the success of Assist within a school, and unfortunately how difficult some vendors tend to make it for other solutions to integrate with them. Let me be clear, no SIS does everything brilliantly on its own, and candidly, it should not try to. So Veracross is the central record. Schools then plug in specialist tools they already use and love. This may be learning management, HR, payroll, library. Essentially, the goal of Veracross is for you to be able to pick the best of breed in every category. And because the data flows from Veracross, you get the benefits of best of breed without the chaos of disconnected systems. And so here's what it looks like in practice. Veracross sits at the center with its open API, with more than 200 partner integrations and more than 500 live integrations out there. Some are pre-built and ready to switch on, whereas others are custom built. I think transparency really is the key here. You should be able to Google a vendor's API and review it during your evaluation process, because that is the true claim of an open API. I pretty firmly believe that an API should not be behind paywalls. It shouldn't be gatekept from you, and no SIS should be able to have to charge you to access your school's data via your API as well. Schoolbox is one of those partners, and we offer a deep certified integration, and this is just not a surface level connection. And Andrew talked about it just before. We have great relationship with the team at Schoolbox, work with them globally, and continue to work together to improve the integration that we already have. Brilliant. Now, we're going to do a bit of a fireside chat with Jono and David from Tyndale Christian College. We have a few questions there. And again, thank you, Jono and David, for joining. If we just go to the first question, I'd really like to know, before, I guess, the integration, what did data flow between your SIS and LMS actually look like at Tyndale day to day?
Thanks, Chris. Yes. So we had a very basic Schoolbox connector with our previous SIS. the data that was passing between was very limited. So that's really restricted what we could surface inside Schoolbox. For example, the staff and the student profiles were very restricted and limited in what information we could bring up there just for staff convenience. So, and that was largely on the SIS's availability of the information passing on to Schoolbox. So a lot of those cases we just had to make do what was there, and the staff still had to go back into the SIS to find out the information which should have been just readily available and easily accessed from a LMS. And then we also had little to no control about the sync windows and such, so we're up to the mercy of when the premeditated sync windows were. So if we were to make live or ad hoc changes within the SIS, they wouldn't surface up inside Schoolbox until the predetermined time. So sometimes if a timetable was changed last minute and that needed to show up in Schoolbox, it wouldn't happen until the next day or so.
Yeah, sure. Well, and walk us through your implementation. What was easier than expected, and obviously what was harder? I think everyone is probably more interested in the latter. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So the easy part was it's a guided process. So Schoolbox support reached out to us. There's a dedicated team that stepped us through the process, laid out what was going to happen, tested it inside the staging environment, so we could see the data once it was migrated, see that it was accurate and correct before we pushed it into production. So that was really easy, especially for the IT team that we were talking technicalities between each other, and yeah, we just all saw eye to eye in that process.
Right.
And I guess what was harder was for us, we have overseas students, and those students live with a family in Australia while they're studying at Tyndale, and so we had to work with both Veracross and Schoolbox to understand what the roles needed to be for that data to sync across correctly to Schoolbox. So that was something that we hadn't foreseen originally, and it took a bit of time to sort that out. But yeah, both vendors were available to us, supportive, and helped us through that process.
Yeah, perfect. I think when you do implementations, we hear it, we obviously go through quite a lot of them. There's always edge cases that individual schools have that you are working to solve as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I guess, what is different now for your teachers and your IT team now that you have both systems and you're up and integrated?
Yeah, so from the get-go, there wasn't too much different especially for the teachers, and we wanted that with something that was drastic as a system database change. We didn't want teachers to be overwhelmed with another thing to go through. So from their perspective, their interface was the same. They still went through Schoolbox for most of the LMS needs. They just had a few quality of life improvements, so they could mark the role through Schoolbox. And we also implemented the teacher portal from Veracross. There's a few overlaps between Schoolbox and Veracross, but that also allowed us to keep the changes or keep the features and functions that we wanted to keep in Schoolbox still there for the time being. Whereas build up the teacher portal in a way that's specially curated for the teachers, so that when they go in there, they see things specifically for them. They can see queries or reports that are useful for them, but they know distinctively where to go for which data and which information.
Yeah, sure. I think just touching on that before we go into the IT team, I think, from our side, we get a lot of conversations from Schoolbox schools who come to us talking about, about the crossover. And for us, we are very strong in the fact that the less change management, the better. We would always recommend that your schools, the schools stay in the portals of Schoolbox. They've invested a lot of time, energy, and effort and money as well, creating that kind of continuity. So we want to support that as well. So that's good to hear. There wasn't much that changed for the teachers. What about the IT team?
Yeah, I think for IT, one of the improvements was around that one source of information. Prior to Veracross, our data was quite fragmented. we didn't have great syncs between various systems. And so now with Veracross, we have a single source of information, we have a single source of timetable information. All that's getting passed through to various systems, which means when something is showing up incorrect, maybe it's a student name or a student is in the wrong year or something, or you need to add a new student or a new staff member, we know where to go. We know that that's in Veracross, and then we can sync that, and all the systems get that information pretty quickly. So that's been probably one of the biggest improvements for us, is around that one source of truth and how that data is passed through the various systems.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. And just last one, for a school weighing up their SIS and LMS decisions, what would you tell them about picking tools that would work together well?
Yeah, so for us, I would say for other schools going through this, I think that change management piece is really important. For us, we were aware of the significant change that was going to come to our staff. We had made deliberate decisions that we wouldn't change what Schoolbox was doing at the moment. So Schoolbox for us is our LMS for academics, but it's also behaviour management. And so some of those things Veracross can do, but we decided that we wouldn't do that yet with Veracross. And that meant that we didn't have to really involve teachers too much in the change management process. All they really needed to do when we switched to Veracross was learn how to mark a role, which is quite simple. So everything else for the teacher remained the same, of how they log behaviour issues, how they use the LMS and the academic side of things. So that really reduced the change management for them, and by and large, not a whole lot of change for them. So that would be one thing. And the other thing we've touched on a bit already was integration. So one of the things that was really lacking for us was integrations and the support for integration. Whereas now with Veracross, and Schoolbox has always been supportive of this, is that partnership is there. That Veracross is very open to integrations. They've got the open APIs that you can look at, but they're also willing to work closely with a vendor, and that's been we've seen that, and it's also really important when we were choosing which SIS that we would go with. So they'll probably be the two main things I'd encourage schools to look at.
Thank you, Jonathan. David, really appreciate your time today. Andrew, I'll pass it over to you now.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, David and Jono. There's some really great insights there. One of the things I honestly liked hearing about that conversation was that it reinforces something that we know internally, that it's not just the products that make the partnership successful, it's the people in the team that help it all get set up and run behind it. So I'll definitely make sure I pass that on to the greater team here at Schoolbox as well. So thanks for the positive feedback. What I wanted to do now was to kind of shift it from the strategic side of the partnership into what it actually looks like in Schoolbox day to day. Because as I was saying earlier, ultimately integrations are only valuable if they create a better experience for the people that are actually using the system. So that's the staff, the students, the parents, and even the administrators. So one area that we've continued to focus heavily on is reducing the complexity traditionally associated with SIS and LMS integrations. Schools don't want large amounts of manual intervention just to keep platforms aligned. So the integration between Veracross and Schoolbox is designed to be straightforward to configure, reliable to maintain, and flexible enough that it can fit different school environments. That includes areas like authentication, student, staff, and parent data syncing, timetable data, class enrollments, and attendance workflows. The overall goal is really about creating confidence that the information flowing consistently and accurately between systems. For students, one of the biggest improvements is simply being operational from day one. When students log into Schoolbox, they immediately have access to their classes, timetable information, due work, and announcements. There's no waiting for manual provisioning or additional setup processes behind the scenes, because Schoolbox is able to consume and surface all that operational information from Veracross. Students receive a far more seamless and personalised experience from the moment they arrive. For teachers, one of the major operational benefits is around enrolment and timetable management. Rather than managing class structures separately across multiple systems, Schoolbox is able to consume that information directly from Veracross. That means classes remain aligned, enrolment changes flow through more efficiently, and the teachers can focus more on teaching and helping students learn rather than platform administration. For schools, this becomes really important operationally because it reduces duplication and helps maintain stronger consistency across the broader ecosystem. Attendance is another really strong example of where the connected systems improve day-to-day workflows. Rather than trying to create this functionality unnecessarily, Schoolbox allows staff to move directly into Veracross's attendance workflows from within their Schoolbox experience. That might sound like a relatively small thing, but reducing the friction of context switching for the staff has a significant impact over time. The less systems feel disconnected, the more naturally staff are able to work with them. One of the major advantages of the connected platforms is being able to surface the important contextual information where staff are already working. Within Schoolbox, schools are able to expose operational and well-being related information directly alongside learning experience. This could include medical alerts, well-being considerations, timetable visibility, and contact information. The key benefit is helping staff make more informed decisions and better support students without constantly needing to move between systems. For families, the goal is really around clarity, visibility, and consistency. Parents don't necessarily care which platform owns which information under the surface. What matters is having a connected experience where they can easily access communication, student information, calendars and timetables, and reports. A really important part of that experience is reducing the friction for families as much as possible. So alongside surfacing that information directly within Schoolbox, we also support deep linking into the Veracross experiences where appropriate, allowing parents to move seamlessly between both platforms without needing to constantly search where things live or manage disconnected workflows. By bringing those experiences together more effectively, schools are able to create a far more connected and accessible experience for families. I think one thing worth highlighting is that Schoolbox and Veracross relationship already supports a broad range of operational workflows today. That includes integrated staff and student parent data syncs, timetable and class enrollments, attendance deep linking into Veracross portals, and allowing Veracross to act as an authentication provider for Schoolbox. So for many schools, the foundation for a connected ecosystem already exists today. One of the next major areas that both of our teams are continuing to work towards is assessment integration. Assessment workflows sit very centrally within teaching and learning operations. So reducing the duplication and improving the movement of assessment information between platforms continues to be an important focus area for both organizations. And more broadly, both Schoolbox and Veracross continue to see this as an evolving partnership, not simply a completed integration project. Schools continue to evolve rapidly, and expectations around connected digital experiences continue to increase as well. So both teams continue to work closely together, looking at where we can improve workflows, visibility, and day-to-day experiences for schools over time. Just to wrap up today, the key theme throughout has really been around that connected experiences. Veracross and Schoolbox both play differently, but play highly complementary roles within a school ecosystem. Veracross provides a strong operational and administrative foundation, while Schoolbox focuses heavily on the learning delivery, engagement, and community experience. Together, that allows schools to create a more connected workflow, improve visibility across system, and ultimately deliver more experience and better experiences for staff, students, and families. I just wanted to say a big thank you again to Chris, David, and Jono for joining us today. And thanks for everyone for taking the time to attend. We'll now move into some questions and discussions. So if you do have any questions, please make sure you post them in the QA area. So I'll just quickly pull them up and see what we've got coming through here. So from Andy, he's asking if the assessment integration is scoped to be such that teachers and those with responsibility for creating assessments can continue to work in Schoolbox with no need to work in both Veracross and Schoolbox. The scoping of the assessment integration is that Schoolbox will be writing assessment data back into Veracross. So as long as the assessments exist in Schoolbox, yes, the teachers, if that was their only thing that they were having to do in Veracross, would no longer need to work between both platforms there. I hope that answers your question there, Andy. Perfect. All right. Whilst some more questions come through, I do have a few questions popped into my head, Chris, during that during the call. So I hope you're okay with me asking you a few questions here.
Go for it.
One of the ones was you mentioned earlier that really interestingly around how most SIS platforms today handle that, the pretty strong fundamentals well. So once schools get past the baseline functionality for a SIS, the conversation probably starts shifting towards more the experience, flexibility, partnerships, and long-term fit. Outside of the strong integration set up between ourselves, what would be the top 2 to 3 things that you typically walk schools through with where Veracross is different from other SIS platforms?
Yeah, I think this is a really, I mean, I could talk about this for a long time. I'm going to try to hold back. I think from my side, as you said, a lot of systems have the fundamentals down, and it's very much like driving a car. They might both get you to the same place or the same destination, but they might do it very differently. Firstly, I think, making sure a lot of the schools that come to us is that the common theme is that they feel that they've outgrown their SIS. They're moving faster than their current provider. Okay, so if you want to grow into your SIS and you want a SIS that is fully featured or across has a significant breadth, then I definitely think Veracross is something to look at. Further to that as well, looking for solutions for all departments. So that kind of ties into that. Solutions for all departments. If they don't have solutions for every department, do they have read-write two-way APIs or really deep integrations with other industry leaders? So that, again, you don't grow out of your SIS and find yourself in this position in 5 years' time. I think from Veracross, we also have an incredible query builder and reporting platform. And in a shameless plug, we do have a VC Studio webinar in a couple of days, which is our new AI tool, which I strongly recommend everyone here joins. But again, we also offer a single record system. And just lastly, I know I've gone up well over 3. I think understanding the company behind the product is really important. Understanding, where they want to go, understanding their roadmap, understanding what they value as important, what their focus is in the industry. That all should play a part because, as I mentioned, this is a 10 to 15 year partnership. It is not a simple transaction, and you want to make sure that you're in partnership, with the person or the company that is best suited for you.
That's a great insight there. We've had a few questions come through around pastoral records. I'll answer one first, and then I'll hand the other one over to you, John and David. So the first one is, can pastoral records sync from Schoolbox to Veracross? At this moment in time, no. It is something that is on our future roadmap, and I guess the way to move it up in where it sits there is the more customers we see that are wanting it there, the more demand, the higher priority we can provide to that through there. But with that in mind, Jono, how does Tyndale manage the data retention for pastoral records because you are using Schoolbox and not Veracross for that?
Yeah, so for us, it's always been in Schoolbox, and we haven't had the ability to integrate that with our legacy system. We couldn't bring that into our legacy system. So we currently have internal processes to archive that information. But yeah, to be able to bring that into the SIS would be advantageous to the school, where you then can archive it, search for it later when you need to look for that kind of thing. So I can see why schools are asking for it, and it would be beneficial to us, but in our current state, it was never something that was in our SIS. So it hasn't, it's more in that archiving place when a student leaves and you want to retain all that information, you want to be able to search for it quickly and know where everything is about that student. That's where I think it's beneficial for that to get pulled back into the SIS.
No, that's good through there. I do have another question for you, Chris, before I jump into the other one there. But for schools whose SIS contracts are coming up, maybe ending next year, when do you typically recommend that they start the evaluation and transition process and conversations?
I mean, that's a pretty hard one, given every school uses SIS slightly differently, or the school sizes can very dramatically change something. You can have an implementation that could go in 12 months, or you can have one that will take 18 to 2 years, depending on the change management, the resourcing, or as well the appetite for the school to push that. I always think a conversation from the outset with a SIS vendor as early as possible really is the best way to start to understand what's out there and what looks like for you. A lot of schools, and I would encourage schools to do some data mapping exercises to understand their requirements, understand their journeys, and put together kind of a steering committee or stakeholder group within the school to drive that. It's not solely an IT project; it's a full school project, and the earlier you can get on it due to the change impact, the better.
That's some good insight there. Now, just jump into the next question because it relates to me. Can the teacher's name be on the student's timetable on Schoolbox? At this moment in time, no, but it is something we have logged already as a improvement piece, and we are working on it. So hopefully soon you'll be able to have that through there. No. Any last minute questions that want to come through? I just saw there's just been another comment from Lance. Given that the APIs are internet accessible, what are the safeguards around authentication? Can a rogue admin view the authentication keys, or worst case, share with a third party? Is the API interface moving to a modern auth model? Lance, I'm not sure if you're talking about the Schoolbox side there or the Veracross side. Both API sets are internet accessible in terms of the documentations for them. The authentication around them is in place on both sides. It's slightly differently implemented, but still quite rigorous and tested often. We are always looking to make further improvements through there. It is a controlled surface inside of Schoolbox with only certain roles being able to access that information. Chris, I'll let you maybe talk to the Veracross side of things.
Yeah, I would do a dedicated session on InfoSec, but certainly, we have MFA attached to all of that, all of our integrations and our partners, and obviously with the recent kind of breaches that we've seen in the industry, there's been even more rigorous, testing or reviewing of our security processes and protocols. So look, we do, I think from a rogue sysadmin perspective, we've got some stakeholders, we definitely do have things in place, but it is also, you know, working with a school. We've got a full trust center that you can look at. If you go to trust.veracross.com, you can request access and you can access all of our kind of internal processes. And if not, we can put you in touch with our Chief Information Security team, officer and team.
Perfect. Perfect. There's just one last question. I'm guessing again it's Schoolbox related rather than Veracross. Is there a way teachers can get data, averages, etc., for common assessments across a whole cohort? We do have our cohort or course markbook UI that is available there. It's not particularly applicable to this presentation today, though. But we can see if someone can reach out to you and help you out there as well. All right, perfect. Well, again, thank you for everyone for attending. Thanks, Chris, Jono, David, for being part of it today. It's been an insightful experience for me, at least. And I hope that our audience have been able to take away some key snippets of information and insights through there as well. So thanks everyone, and have a lovely rest of your Tuesdays.
Thanks guys. Thanks Jerome.